Hey, Kent, I'm Lovinder. I'll be moderating this panel.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thanks for doing this. We're waiting on Reinaldo, so just give us a few seconds. All right, well, I guess we'll get him here when he gets here. Oh, there he is. Hey, Reinaldo, I'm Lovinder Gill. I'll be moderating this panel. Thanks for doing it. All right, let's get started.
Good to see you, Ray. It's been a while.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
All right.
All right, well, welcome to the Big Apple Film Festival's Film Distribution Summit. We now have a panel with Kent Sanderson and Reinaldo Marcus Green. Kent is the head of acquisitions and ancillary distribution at Bleecker Street Films, and Reinaldo is a filmmaker, director, probably best known for the Academy Award-winning Best Picture, King Richard. Welcome to this seminar, gentlemen. Thank you for doing it.
Of course.
Thank you, guys.
So I want to go ahead and let everyone in our attendees know, go ahead and send your questions to the chat or to the Q&A box, and we will get those questions up as soon as we can get them through here. In the interim, I'll start with you, Kent. Love your title. Can you break it down a little bit for us and tell us exactly what that means?
Well, is the word salad that is my title not self-explanatory? No. So I have two main roles at Bleecker Street. One is I run our acquisition slate. That takes the form of both. We buy finished movies, but we also put money into films during the financing stage as negative pickups or pre-buys. So, for example, next year, 5 out of 7 of the films we plan on releasing are essentially co-productions where we've been involved since the beginning. So I oversee that from both a creative point of view and also a deal-making point of view. So, I oversee our legal team as well as, run financial modeling in advance of actually putting forth offers or closing any deals. The other hat I wear, ancillary is a funny word because it technically means supporting, but in the movie business, it means basically everything that's not the theatrical experience. So it used to be, of course, that everything that like home video and streaming or television, whatever, just supported the theatrical window. And now, of course, it's the other way around where theatrical is important, but most of the revenue comes from other sources. So I oversee all of our streaming relationships, as well as I co-run our joint venture with Neon, which is a home entertainment company called Decal, which we formed in 2021. I negotiated our output deals with Amazon, Hulu, and most recently Showtime, as well as all of our other streaming relationships.
All righty. And Reinaldo, you kind of represent the other side of this equation, and you work with people like Kent on a regular basis. Can you give us a little bit of background about how you got where you are, sir?
Yeah, so I had a couple different careers before I decided to go to film school at 27, and so I decided that was really the only way I was gonna force myself to make short films and get it out into the world. And so I left my day job at AIG, the insurance company, and left that for film school. And I first wanted to be a producer. I have a brother, Rashad Ernesto Green, who's a writer-director, and I thought, maybe I can produce his films. That was really what I thought when I decided to apply to film school and really try to think about this as a potential career. But it's NYU is a writing directing program. So I started, in my spare time doing the short films, and I had some early success with my short films, and it really opened up the door as a potential way to support myself. Really was as a writer director. And when I realized that, the producing was not as easy as I thought it was going to be, it was, really, it was harder in a lot of ways to take on other people's assignments in some ways. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to do all this heavy lifting, maybe I should put the focus on some of the subject matters that I find important. And so that's kind of what happened to me in film school. I made a couple of short films, and was able to get even some of those short films distributed, which was which wasn't that common. So I had a short film play on HBO, and I had a short film play on Condé Nast, and so I started understanding some of the distribution models a little bit, even in film school, in that sort of journey. And then I left film school with, I don't know, 7 short films, 5 of them which nobody has ever seen, and they're locked away and hope they never do see. But 2 of them that broke out and started to really help me develop, honestly, more confidence than anything, more confidence that I could do something and it could get seen, that there was an audience for it, however small, for short films. And, with that little bit of success with those shorts, I was able to say, okay, it bought me enough runway to try to give a crack at making my first feature film, which I did in 2018. It was called Monsters and Men. And that film really opened up the potential to work, sort of in the major leagues, if you will, on a professional level, and start getting scripts and agents and all of that stuff. But that was sort of my path into filmmaking. I was a teacher first, and I worked on Wall Street, and then I left both of those careers to try to give filmmaking a crack. And I finally found the thing that I think spoke to me the most, and allowed me, the most expression I think I had in any of those jobs, that allowed me the way to kind of tap into things that I never thought were possible. And storytelling, obviously, there's so many different ways to do that. And now that I've, kind of graduated from that first feature film, the doors have continued to open. So, I've been very blessed and fortunate in my short career so far.
Yeah, it's kind of the dream career for those of us that are in the industry, the way that you market it. So congratulations on all that success.
Thank you.
We have our first question. It's for you, Kent. Can you describe the process by which you identify projects to work with as negative pickups? And the follow-up is, how are those deals usually structured with the pre-existing partners and producers?
So by identifying the projects, it really comes through our network of relationships between agents, managers, and producers and filmmakers, where we aren't a production company, but we sort of pretend to be one, in so much that a lot of scripts come through me and my team's doors, at various stages. Usually when we jump on, it's at what is called the package stage, where maybe there's 1 or 2 cast members, there's a script everybody likes, and there's sort of a path to getting the movie made. In some cases, it does start a lot earlier, where, again, we're not a production company, so we don't develop in the same way, but it doesn't mean that we can't say, okay, well, here's a filmmaker we really like, let's try to build this together, and then we'll worry about the financing and all that as we go. Examples of that include like The Art of Self-Defense, which we built with Riley Stearns. Summering, just I'm a huge James Ponsoldt fan, so that was one where it was really just a raw script. So it varies, and like a lot of things in this business, there's no real pattern. Some things happen very quickly when things are very fully formed, and some take a number of years to put together. In terms of the deal structure, so a negative pickup means that since we're not producing the movie, I'm credited as executive producer, which is one of the most wonderfully meaningless titles in the film business. But what that basically means is we come on and we're representing a portion of the budget, whether that's a pre-buy against US or North American rights, or some other hodgepodge of rights, including the entire world, where we then we'll figure out how to distribute the film internationally. Usually we partner with a major studio like Sony or Universal. So that's structured where the producers, the filmmakers, continue to own the underlying rights to the movie. I always say that my title, that ungainly title, is in and of itself inaccurate, because we don't buy movies, we buy the distribution rights to movies. And so every deal is structured where There's a minimum guarantee, which is, what is commonly referred to as the purchase price, but it's really just an advance against future receivables. And then there's a formula that involves a distribution fee and back-end participation and a variety of other levers that'll determine that in success, where we can hopefully, deliver more revenue to the actual financiers and the producers of the movie. But every deal is wildly different. I'm the kind of person that loves making things more complicated than they need to be. So we're really all over the place. But what is important to us is when we come onto something is that we are only additive to the process. We're the distributor, we're the studio, but when I go on set, it's usually for 3 hours to say hello and like get out of the way and just be supportive. And so, we try to present the best of both worlds, where we're helping people get their movies made and putting money into getting movies made, but not taking the sort of ownership role that a more traditional financier would do.
Okay. And Reinaldo, as someone who's on the creative side of things, how do you navigate the business side of show business? Dealing with Kent and executive producers and so on and so forth.
I think it's evolved since my first film. When I was first making my feature, I wrote my first film. And so I was really trying to get producers, once I left film school, that blanket of, folks that would read my script on a timely basis, that was gone. So, I had to kind of rely on the network that I had built, in film school. And part of that were every festival I attended, every filmmaker I met, your closest allies are your contemporaries. And so just trying to create a group that could, that I could count on outside of, the film school support. And I was fortunate to land some producers in Court 13, which was a small production company based in Louisiana for my first film. And they didn't have any money, but what they did have were some inroads. They had connections with the Sundance Labs and the Tribecas, and they had some success, even with distributing certain films. Beasts of a Southern Wild was one of their breakout movies. And so I found a core group of really young, hungry producers to help, take my little vomit script, if you will, and help me develop it. I couldn't pay them, but I can pay them in credit. And so, I found a group of people that could help me get to that next level. And part of that was developing my script and having eyeballs on it. And so once I got that to a good place, I was able to land an agent. And that was like a huge step for me, was really, getting my agent. And it wasn't just about any agent. My agent so happened to represent some really, at the time, some formidable filmmakers, and Dee Rees and David Lowery and Ryan Coogler and some Cary Fukunaga and some really, really talented artists. And so to be on that label, so to speak, only helped, to build a little bit of street cred. And then once my script got into the agency, then I had access to talent. And that was a huge part. I was able to cast my first film with, some really, really up and coming talent, John David Washington, Kelvin Harrison Jr., Shantae Adams, Anthony Ramos. And they're all, they've all gone on to do amazing things in their career, but like, we built that first film together. And so that was the first movie, and then after that, I started getting sent scripts with other producers, already attached. And, of course you want to bring your team everywhere, right? Like, I've developed this first movie, we made it. And then they're like, well, there's no room for your other producers. So that was like a tough thing for me, because as a loyal person and someone that you want to bring everybody with you, you can't always do that. And of course, now I'm certainly trying. I had to be in a position to then say, can I get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 from my previous projects? And that's been the hardest thing, is really being able to prove that, these are the folks that helped me get there. I don't want to abandon those folks. I wouldn't be here without them, but sometimes one of us needs to go first. And that's sort of been the story of the career so far, is, one of us has to get in the door, and then we'll open the door for others. And so, King Richard is a perfect example. It was my third feature, and that movie had some success, but because of the success of that movie, I've had more leverage in retaining a lot of my crew. I could say I'm going to bring my DP. I can't even do the movie if I can't. There were a lot. I was in a much stronger position to surround myself because I proved myself. And I guess it's like I think very much like an athlete. You have those dog years in the league where you're just kind of trying to survive, and you're just trying to create opportunities so that you can surround yourself on a championship team. And I hope that I've created opportunities for people. I hope that I bring, have tried to be loyal to the people that have been loyal to me, and I'll continue to do that in my career and bring as many people as I can in the process that have helped me get there. So I think that it's evolved for me in terms of producer relationships. I've worked with several, kinds, and like you said, there's EPs, and they mean different things. There's lots of different producers on a film, and there are the producers that you've never seen, and they have the credit on the movie, and then there's producers that are there that who are there every day. And so I've dealt with those various kind of stages in both television and in film. And I think all we're doing is trying to surround ourselves with people that care about what it is that they're doing, people that work hard, people that have always have the story in mind for what they're working on, people that care about coming to work every day and putting in the extra time. And then you're taking note as a filmmaker. Wow, I really like the way that person works, or I like the way they're developing. Like, I hope we're gonna continue a relationship after this movie. I like that feeling of growing with the people that I've worked with. So hopefully that's what I continue to do as I move forward.
Okay. Kent, it seems like there's a ever-changing landscape for distribution. Like what you would distribute now 10 years ago didn't even exist, and maybe deals you would make now, that's not how those things would have happened 4 or 5 years ago. How do you see the landscape changing, and for up and coming producers, independent producers, how do we navigate that?
Well, I mean, there's no better example than Ray's own career, where you have Monsters and Men was a traditional platform release, went to Sundance, acquired by Neon, went, limited to wide, and had a fairly traditional window before it was available to watch at home. And then you get to what was it, with Mark Wahlberg film, which was basically a wide release to PVOD, and PVOD was a model that did not exist until COVID. Was PVOD, for clarity, is like it's a big, generally speaking, a nationwide theatrical release, and there's a $20 price point a couple of weeks thereafter. And then you get to King Richard, which is wide release and simultaneously with HBO Max and SVOD. And so forgive me for throwing this back at you, Ray, but it's like it's a perfect example of sort of the hodgepodge that we've been living with for the last couple of years of completely changing models. And the second two of those movies would not have existed before 2020. And in some ways that's liberating, because being stuck in this, like you have to be in theaters for 74 days, otherwise nobody's going to play you, is fine for some movies. It worked out great for Top Gun Maverick, where it's like it's only in theaters for 120 days. Like, yeah, just keep that going, that's fine. But it's not appropriate for every movie, and even for most movies. And if there's one good thing that's come from the pandemic completely blowing up our infrastructure, is that you can now say, okay, I've got this movie. Let's look at the tools that we have available to us, and how do we structure a release around this movie that makes the most amount of sense. In 2022, I don't think any single release that Bleecker Street worked on had the same release pattern in terms of its relationship with home entertainment. We basically said, all right, this movie, this will work better for this particular film, and this will work better for this other film. We, for example, within 3 weeks of each other, we put out a movie called A Love Song, which is this really lovely Sundance pickup. It's a two-hander with two long-standing character actors. It's an old age romance taking place in like the Colorado wilderness. It is this gentle lyrical movie. There's no way that we're going to like rush that to VOD, because you sort of need to build some word of mouth around it. It's extremely well reviewed. That looked a lot like an old school, pre-COVID release, where it was only in theaters for 2 full months before it went to VOD. Contrastingly, within 3 weeks thereafter, we released a film called Breaking with John Boyega and Michael K. Williams, and that was on 1,000 screens week one, nationwide, every single market, and then it was available on PVOD 20 days later. Again, that $20 price point. The reason for that is that film has, while it's got a lot on its mind, and it's about, you know, veterans, our relationship with veterans and how we cast people aside. It's also got some commercial elements to it. It's got it's got an all-star cast, and we were like, this can do well on PVOD, and while simultaneously keeping a really dedicated theatrical window in place. So it really depends on what the movie is. I think that next year we're going to continue to experiment with different models. Everyone's experimenting with different models, but that's great, and it allows us as a distributor and someone who invests in movies to not necessarily wall ourselves off from opportunities in films and filmmakers that we're excited about, because we're stuck in this one particular way of putting films out. So the way we navigate it is by trying things. Not everything works. But I think that just the ability to try is the most positive thing in the world for our business.
Okay. And a follow-up to that for you, Kent. So with the film that you have coming out next year, you said 9 films coming out?
We've 7 on the slate right now.
Okay, sorry, 7. Are they all completely different distribution styles, or, you know?
Let's see. I mean, I'll be specific here. The first release out of the gate is going to be Emily, which is a Emily Bronte biopic with Emma Mackey from Sex Education. And that is probably going to be a platform style release, either, you know, New York and LA week 1, and then, you know, a few more markets week 2, and then nationwide week 3. Possibly will be more nationwide week 2. And then that'll have sort of the new normal to home entertainment distribution of 45 days, where you can rent it or buy it, and then a couple months thereafter, it'll go through our deal with Showtime and be there. The next release will be Golda, which is a biopic of Helen Mirren. It's somewhat of a biopic of Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel, and she's played by Helen Mirren. It's more of a sort of a darkest hour thriller than it is a straight up biopic. It's war room conversations, and that's going to be probably nationwide, 750 to 1,000 screens, something like that. And then rather than having a PVOD window, because the movie's commercial, but it's not a true thriller. It's a war room thriller that we're gonna probably window out to be more like 45 days to sort of premium EST. So you can buy the movie for $19.99. Golda Meir is a figure that I think a lot of higher end audiences are familiar with. And so rather than doing PVOD, rather than just doing regular VOD, I think we're going to try this model that a lot of the major studios have been going for. After that, the slate includes Mafia Mama, which is a full-on commercial action comedy. That'll be a wide release. I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen after that wide theatrical release right now. It could be PVOD, it could be premium EST. I don't know. I kind of want to see what other people are doing because I have a little bit of time. I have like 5 months before I really have to decide. And then other films, we are not necessarily going to decide until we see them. Meg Ryan's film with David Duchovny, which is a rom-com, literally wrapped photography last week. And I kind of don't want to back into any strategy until we see the movie and kind of feel like where it could live best. So more as this story develops, because it's just, not only do you want to be able to see the movies, but you also want to see where the landscape is, because it's shifting every single day.
Okay. And from your perspective, Reinaldo, how much impact does how your film is going to be distributed to have on A, your film getting made, and B, how you make the film?
It has a lot. I've had various experiences. Obviously, the pressure is off in some ways about trying to get a distributor when you're working with a studio. I already know how many screens it's going to be on, and based on the size and the budget of the film. And there's one form of pressure that's off because of that. But then it's like, how do we get butts in the seat? I still think about that, because you want people to love the film. You want people to support the film. You want people to talk about the film. But there are certain things that I've learned in my short time, which is those things are really out of your control. You try to make a great film. You put everything you can in that part of the filmmaking process. And there are really, really smart people on the other side who market the film and distribute the film and understand the marketplace in a way that, they're studying it in ways that we aren't. And, you're never going to win everybody. You're trying to make the best version of the film that you think you can make, and trying to make it different, trying to make it unique, trying to speak to that little voice in your head, but trying to control who's going to see it and when they're going to see it is not something that I spend my time worrying about. I did grow up watching movies in the theater. So I try to think about myself as an audience member sometimes, like, would I want to see this? And that goes, and I think about every scene that way. Is this something that I would want to see in the theater? I think about my mother who doesn't know about tennis. Like, what kind of movie would she like to see? So I wasn't like interested in making a tennis movie, so like there were certain, things that I can think about as just like an audience member and try to put myself in the seat of just a normal audience member and say, would I want to go see this? And I try to hold myself accountable to some degree about trying to do that. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but that's certainly how I try to think about it. But yeah, those things are really out of my control. Kent's world is so different than mine. It's really about the script and the story and the performances. And that's all we can do, right? Is, when I press send on the edit, and that's the last time I can touch it, is just hope that we put everything that we could into that film. So yeah, my job kind of stops at that point. Of course, having been on the circuit a little bit, I've learned about talking about your movie, and there's like a whole movie after the movie. That's like a whole nother conversation and a whole different, strategy and how to be a part of it. But, both equally important jobs. But yeah, right, for the most part, it's really focusing on the creative and things that I can control.
So does that impact the decision on what projects you do? Because it sounds like it doesn't really impact the actual creative side of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd be lying to say I don't like eyeballs. Yes. I mean, I think I gravitate towards meaningful projects that hopefully can get out to wider audiences. And I don't know if there's like a one solution fits all. I've worked in both television and film, and I've gravitated towards projects that I think could get, which are important to me, and that could get the most eyeballs. And whether that's an HBO limited series with David Simon or, or King Richard, like, these are the things. Now, these were opportunities that also I pitched on. I didn't know I was going to get them. Nothing was guaranteed. I had to go in the room and I had to win those jobs. Mm-hmm. And that was part of my job but yeah, absolutely. I mean, getting an HBO series with David Simon, like, I would have like thrown myself in front of a bus to do that in film school. Like, wait, you want to pay me now to do that? Like, don't tell David I would have done it for free. Like, those are things that, like, I'm so blessed at this point in my life to be able to even pitch on those things. Look, 5 years ago, I'm not even in the room on King Richard. That's probably the truth. That's going to other filmmakers. I'm just not on the list. The conversation has changed for sure. The fact that I could get in the room was a start to that conversation. The fact that I could stay in the room was another thing. And so, yeah, we're continuing to push the boundaries and get opportunities that maybe we wouldn't have gotten before. And now we just have to create more opportunity for ourselves. And that's why I think writing is a big part of that. I've never gone into a pitch meeting as a director. I've always gone in as sort of a writer-director, someone that's like, I'm looking at the story and ways that I can potentially improve them. And so for the young filmmakers, the folks that are starting out, it's like, you have a point of view. And if you feel like that, that is the story you want to make, I wouldn't be trying to make the story that they want to make. I'd be trying to pitch the story that you want to make and hope that those two things are aligned. And I've been blessed so far that happened for me. You know, I felt like I took on projects that I could add value to. And I have turned down a lot of stuff that I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have turned out, you know, like my kids are not through college yet, you know, but I've been true to that little voice, like, okay, can I resist some of that other stuff right now? Because, you know, I really want to make I want to be proud of the legacy of projects that I'm a part of. And it's hard to resist numbers that you've never heard before. It's hard to resist things that, you know, because you can work on something that you love that doesn't turn out great and then not get paid for it. So, you know, those are difficult decisions, but at least I could live with that. You know, I can live with that decision because I feel okay. You know, I still eat peanut butter and tuna fish. So, you know, I don't require that much to be happy, you know, so long as I'm working on things that make me content in my heart and know that I'm focusing on those things, then I feel like I'm in the right place. So that's what I've been able to focus on so far.
Now, is that peanut butter and tuna fish together at the same time, or is
no, definitely not. No, definitely not. Now, you know, we used to eat tuna fish with just the water, and now, you know, I've graduated to some olive oil and tuna fish. So, you know, I'm spending, you know, the $4 can, not the $2 can. Nice. You know, I've gone up a little bit. I've graduated a little bit.
Yeah, living large.
Almond butter instead of the Jiffy. You know, but I understand that struggle. You know, look, my parents didn't grow up with money, and I grew up in a single parent household with my father and my brother. Like we understood struggle in a different way, and you know, I think that's, you know, in some ways kind of given me a little bit of armor in this difficult career. You know, it's afforded me some thick skin in difficult situations, and I'm going to need it now because I'm embarking on the toughest film I've ever had to make, and that's you know, I'm hoping that armor helps continue to protect me in difficult times.
All right, well, we'll come back to that film. I've got a couple questions for you, Kent. Can you talk about your doc acquisition process? Is it similar to narratives or somewhat different?
Well, we're not truly in the documentary business nearly as much as we are in the narrative business. The first doc we ever did was a film called McQueen, which was about Alexander McQueen, the fashion designer. And we came onto that at the you know, pre-buy stage and put in a good portion of the budget. You know, it's an evolving space for us in so much that the other ones on our slate are all strange. You know, The Loneliest Whale, which was a nature film, was one that, I'll be transparent, we probably would not have released if it wasn't during COVID. It was a film where, you know, a friend of mine made it, and it's a lovely movie, and we wanted to help them find an audience for it. And then the other two, one is a film called Second Chance, which we just released a trailer for, and that's a partnership with Showtime's documentary unit. Where, you know, the idea is that is sort of a first go, where these are films that we'll work on together, where it's all about sort of maximizing the number of eyeballs in the film, whether that's in theaters or if it's on Showtime. So, and that's one where they really kind of led the process. They had already acquired the movie out of Sundance. And my hope is that there's going to be more of that next year, where we can do things in an earlier stage together, but it's really embryonic. That relationship is sort of an offshoot of our streaming relationship. So I don't know where that's going to go. We're going to see, but I love those guys and we'd love to do more with them. And then we have one there where that's been in development for years, which is now called The Sunrise File, which is it is technically a documentary, but you could also look at it as a narrative. It's essentially a scripted animated Nazi hunting thriller that Alex Gibney's producing. It's been in the works since 2020, and turns out animation takes a while. And so animation married with a complicated international co-production structure has really made this movie. It's going to take at least 5 years to go from when we jumped onto it to when it's actually done. That's something I'm really excited about. It's going to have, you know, voices of Ray Fiennes and Naomi Watts and Juliana Margulies, Matt Dillon, Ray Fiennes. It's going to be really cool. But that's one where it kind of made sense for us, because it's like, you know, it it kind of feels a little bit more like a thriller biopic, like the kind of thing that on the narrative side we'd be into. So it can be similar, but I would be lying and say we are really a narrative focused company, and these documentary opportunities that pop up are opportunistic and random, like so many other things on this side of the business.
All right. And another question for you. Bleecker Street seems strong on female-led narratives next year. Is that part of your mandate? What do you see as some of the key challenges for female writer-directors?
It is important to us to empower women to be the lead creative voices. Next year is I think for the last, I have to go look at it. I think for the last 3 years, we've had majority female filmmakers, directing our movies. It's important to us, but I would always say that it's 50 empower women to make movies that speak to them and to that audience. But also we're a filmmaker forward company. And so at the end of the day, we want to empower people who are coming from a unique point of view, regardless of gender or anything else. And it so happens that I think that a lot of the films that we gravitate towards are directed by women. But I'm thrilled and honored to be able to do that, to be able to continue to push female filmmakers wherever possible.
Okay. And
I didn't answer the challenging part. I can't speak because I'm not on the creative side, and I'm not a filmmaker. I think it's hard for everybody, and I think that it is really unfortunate how few women still get to command big movies, and I think there is a trickle down effect where it's great when you see Patty Jenkins, it's great when you see Catherine Bigelow, but it becomes more of a exception than the rule. And I think I don't want to put the onus on major studios, but I think that in some ways they help lead that ecosystem. And listen, we want to help people build their careers in an early stage, for the most part, and I think we've been really good about supporting women doing that. But that only matters so much if they're not going to eventually go direct bigger studio films. And all I can do from my side is help make that first step more possible.
Okay. Reinaldo, are the rumors true about your next project? Is it about the legend?
Rumors are true. Yeah, rumors are true. We're 3 weeks out, less than 3 weeks out. Today was 3 weeks. So
3 weeks of production. Can you tell us a little bit about the development of that project and how you got involved in it?
Yeah, I was actually editing King Richard at the time when I got the first script, and there was a draft written when I first got it, and I read it and I thought, it's Bob Marley. It's amazing. It's an amazing opportunity. It's also like, should I run now, or how do I not mess this one up? But I don't know. I'm not a deeply religious person, but I definitely believe in signs and stuff. And my middle name is Marcus. I was named after Marcus Garvey. We grew up on Bob's music in my house. There were just weird like signs in my life. Right after Monsters and Men, I did a show called Top Boy, actually here, based in the UK, and that show was shooting in London and Jamaica. It could have been any two places in the world. And I had that experience, and then I go to Jamaica and I'm staying at Kevin McDonald's house. Kevin McDonald did the documentary of Marley, like weird, like little, I don't know. There were just all these little signs that maybe this was written for me in some way. And I had to kind of listen to that little voice inside that says, why not? I believe in my parents were revolutionaries, and I believe in Bob's music and what that tried to represent, to bring people together in unity and all of that stuff. And so, I just kind of, raised my hand and said, I think, let me at least meet the family and see if they feel the same. And once I got their blessing, obviously I'm not Jamaican, but they felt like I was the right person to bring their father's story to life. And I had to also listen to that too. I think there were several people that tried to make a Bob Marley movie over the last 25, 30 years. A lot of scripts went to die. And so I thought it would be a tiny miracle if we could actually make the movie. Finding the right person, finding the right cast, finding the right individuals that can play Bob and carry that legacy. And I found an actor in Kingsley Ben-Adir who I think is amazing. So yeah, I felt like it's possible. I felt like it was possible. A lot of, I've been fortunate. I haven't put my name on a lot of stuff, and so I don't overdevelop. My name is not in like 50 things around the industry. I've been pretty tight about that stuff. And so if I put my name on it, I want to see it get made. I've just like been that kind of person. And so I've been, this has been my focus for the past 2 years, and still trying to mount this movie and get it off the ground. And it's challenging like every movie, but this one has a different layer of challenge to it. It's a cultural icon that so many people hold near and dear to their heart. And we have a great responsibility to try to honor that. So I think so long as the intentions are good, that's where I continue to try to double down on that. Like my intentions are great. My intentions to try to honor Bob and his family are great. And I'm going to just try to stick to that compass as we continue to try to make this film and make his music come to life to a generation of kids that don't know him, to my sons that, hopefully will grow up on Bob. But I remember when I watched Malcolm X, Spike Lee's Malcolm X, and what that movie did. Like when I think of Malcolm X, I think of Denzel, and it just like he changed it for me. And we have an opportunity to do that for kids. We have an opportunity to introduce them to one of the world's greatest musicians. So I'm deeply honored to even come close to touching it. And I'm just gonna, I know, as they say, go with Ja when it comes to this thing. It's bigger than me for sure. This project is bigger than me. But I thought if I was going to do anybody's music, because somehow I've become a biopic guy, but it's not like I was, it's not like I thought I was going to be a biopic guy. It just kind of has happened in the last couple years. But if I were going to do anyone's, Bob was one to do. Bob was one to do. And so, yeah, I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm excited. All those butterflies before a game, so to speak, all the things I think you need to do this job. You need a certain level of fear to do it, because I think if I wasn't scared, I don't think I could do it. I think I need that in order to kind of march towards the fire a little bit. And so, yeah, I feel the challenge, I feel the pressure, but in a good way. It excites me, and I feel up to the challenge, and let's see what we net out at the end of it.
Well, that's exciting. One of my favorite music videos when I was younger was the Waiting in Vain video with the children.
Yeah.
I hope some aspect of that song gets into this movie.
You'll have to wait till 2024 release.
I definitely will. All right. Kent, we got another question for you. Does Bleecker Street offer finishing funds for projects in post-production, directed by, produced by, and shot by women? Is there any initiative that you guys have that can supports those elements?
Finishing funds are tricky in so much that that's still essentially a production investment. Again, we don't finance movies in a direct way. We don't produce movies. That said, always open to creative ways of getting involved in films, whether they're in pre-production or post-production or what have you. So there's no pre-existing fund or anything like that dedicated, because again, we acquire distribution rights to movies, and that's kind of the mechanism by which we invest in films. So it'd be hard for us to set aside a fund strictly developed and devoted to finishing movies without us being involved in actually distributing the movies. So the short answer to that is no. There's no direct fund or anything we're doing. But if there's a specific project and a specific filmmaker that we can talk about, we're always open to those opportunities.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left. I just want to take these last few minutes and have each one of you just kind of give us for these up and coming filmmakers, these producers, these directors, what kind of advice do you have to navigate their way to when they're on the panel and not being attendees? You want to start with that, Kent?
Sure. I think that there's no one path to getting ahead in this business. It's I think that the only thing that you can really remember is to not try one thing, try lots of different things. Whether that's, starting at the bottom. I mean, I started in the mailroom at a talent agency and clawed my way up and went my way up and answered phones for 5 years and all that. That's one way of doing it. Making shorts is one way of doing it. Writing scripts for 20 years is one way of doing it. There's really no one story that gets people to to advance in this business. So I would just say, not only try lots of different things, but talk to as many people as you possibly can, because I think Ray said it best, that your peers are your best allies. The people that I came up with are the people I still talk to all the time. Whether that's on the business side or the creative side. So I would just, people talk about networking as an important thing. I think it's more than that. I think that coming up in this business is the people that you grow your career with. It's not a network, it's something deeper than that. And I would always honor those people and help each other, bring each other up whenever you possibly can. I got my first job at a major studio because I knew a guy and I was friends with a guy who I was in the mailroom with. And I've helped other people in my generation along. It's paying it forward and working with people that you care about and you came up with is so important.
Awesome. Reinaldo?
Yeah, I mean, Ken said it best. I mean, I don't know. It can feel very lonely. It's a very scary thing, believing in yourself. It takes some trial and error. It takes a lot of trial and error. So, I practiced a lot in film school. I paid a lot of money to do that, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to pay it back. I'd taken on over $300,000 of student loan, and I was just betting on myself. I was just betting on myself that it was possible. I believed in that little voice that I could do it. And then I doubled down on that. But I tried very much to stay straight. Like, once I decided that I wanted to write and direct, like, that's what I focused on. I didn't do anything else. And I really tried to take all the rest of the distractions out. And I didn't go the commercial route. I mean, I wanted to at times, sometimes I wish, I had a little extra, but I just focused on the one thing that I set out to do in film school, which is to make films. And I'm really happy that I did that. And I think, sometimes it takes a little bit of success, right? It takes that first short film, but I didn't, so many of my classmates didn't finish their films. They would make it and then they beat themselves up, and then it's still sitting on their hard drives. They still didn't put credits on them, and they still didn't submit them to festivals because one teacher told them it wasn't good enough. And it's you have to kind of, there's good advice, and then there's not so great advice, and then there's your own voice and figuring out when to push through those negative voices that are going to come in. People are going to try to break you down. People are going to try to tell you that you're not good enough. But more than likely, you're going to be the person that's doing it the most to yourself. And if you can kind of overcome that, I think that's the first challenge. That's the first challenge. And then not being afraid to ask for help. That's a big one too. We're all so prideful. And, I definitely come from a prideful family. We're asking for help. What's that? But we definitely need it. And then surrounding yourself with people that can help, not necessarily best friends either, people that can motivate you and drive you to be better. And it's sort of finding those right people to help navigate that next phase in sort of the career. If you're making that first film, how do you navigate that? No one's going to do it for you. There's definitely that, you have to actually do the work. If you're staring at a screen for 10 hours, like, why don't you send 10 emails instead of just, blank pages? There's a way to like utilize that time to move your projects along. These are just little things that kind of helped me as I was going forward. But yeah, like, I think we all kind of faced that rock bottom moment a few times. The one thing I didn't do was stop living my personal life while trying to make films. I don't think putting life on hold to try to make it is the answer. At least it wasn't for me, and I'm glad I didn't. I met my wife. I allowed myself to be open to like living as a human being, and film being just a part of my life as opposed to being my life. And I think I can enjoy it a lot more because I created it with a bit more balance. I had met my wife. I had a child. Like, there were other things that were more important than just making movies. And I'm really amazed that is my profession. I feel lucky, but like, that's not my life. I'm not defined by that. I'm defined by what kind of person I am and who I am to my kids and to my wife and to my friends. And I'm glad that I get to make films, and it's kind of amazing. And so I think it's just not stopping your lives to do this thing. It's just making it a part of it. It's a lifestyle for sure. But yeah, there's like a deep belief in yourself that you have to overcome, and kind of shut out all the negative voices. If I listened to every professor in film school, I would not be here. And it's no offense to those people. I wasn't supposed to go to South Africa to make my short film. Why? Because I'm not South African. There were like all these like things that I was told no. And I just said, well, I hear you and I appreciate the advice, and I'm going to do what I feel is right for me at this point. And that's your choice. And you have to kind of push through those choices if you really believe in them. So, there's no one way to do this thing other than you need a really, really deep sense of self-belief, because, it can beat you down in the process. But surround yourself with positive people that believe in you, people that care about you, and can help you get to that next level, and pay it forward. Don't just reach out to people when you need them. Reach out to people when you don't need anything from them. I think that's sometimes a really great way to just be. It's a way to build character in yourself. Like, am I only reaching out to people when I need something for myself? Maybe there's a reason I'm not growing. You should do that anyway. Don't just call people, when you need something. I think sometimes it's kind of, developing real relationships, real meaningful relationships. That's what this is about, because you're going to look around and say, well, I got here, and then who's around me? So I think it's about building that stuff, building those stones for yourself.
Well, gentlemen, so appreciative of both of you for taking the time to be here with us. Best of luck on your slate for next year, Kent. Reinaldo, don't screw it up. We don't want to wait in vain for this film. Good luck, sir. I know you're going to finish it. Thank you both, gentlemen, so much very much.
Appreciate it. Okay.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Yeah, bye-bye.